There is a man named Kevin Smith who has been jailed for 8 years now and has never gone to trial and has never been found guilty. 8 years of his life he has been in jail and has not even gone to trial yet. And he's convicted of a very low level crime, which he says he's not even, which he hasn't even committed this crime, but it has to do with drugs. And this man has been in jail for 8 years. So let's get into it. I found that Sean King did the best coverage of this. I absolutely love him. I'm sure you know him, but if not, please check him out. Talk about a voice of truth and someone who is making great changes just through spreading awareness. Sean King. So Louisiana has held a man in jail for over 8 years without ever convicting him of a crime. And again, let me stress, this is happening all over the country, and we'll get into those stats in a bit. But I really think it's important to take a look at one individual and see what the hell is going on with this one individual. So we know this is actually a real thing. It's not just stats. How could this be? February 2010, over 8 years ago, police in New Orleans neighborhood of Carlton raided a home where they said a 43-year-old man named Kevin Smith lived. Police claimed that they found small baggies of cocaine in a safe in a home. According to Smith's attorney, however, Smith did not even actually live in that home. But he was arrested on drugs charges nonetheless. Because of previous conviction, the DA's office had the ability, even though Smith was just facing a nonviolent drug charge, to prosecute him under a repeat felony statute in the state that could leave him up to 20 years in prison. And then you have politicians and businessmen who are ripping us off blind, who are out walking the streets and continuing to rip us off blind. Trump University. Sorry, thou shalt not say that name. Onto it. Jail and prisons in the United States are full of nonviolent drug offenders who were given harsh sentences, including life in prison once they were found guilty. Life in prison. Smith has never been convicted of the crime that he was arrested for. Smith sat in jail for the rest of 2010, all of 2011. He was locked up for all of 2012 because his defense requested continuancies several times, and court was closed due to Hurricane Isaac that fall. So he sat in jail for a whole nother year. He sat in jail for all of 2013, 2014, and 2015. In 2014, after Smith had sat in jail for 4 years, prosecutors offered him a plea deal. They'd let him go on if he would plead guilty. And he would not. He did not. Smith refused. He maintained that he did not have any cocaine and was not guilty of the crimes that police and prosecutors were accusing him of. Now we're talking about a man who had just spent 4 years in jail and could potentially spend another 15 years in jail. But he held on to his, and he said, I am not guilty, and I am not saying that I am. Without even being convicted by a jury of his peers, local authorities kept Kevin Smith in jail anyways. They continued to keep him in jail. He remained there for the rest of 2015, all of 2016, and all of 2017. On November 13th, 2017, the judge in Smith's case granted, okay, I thought it shut off. The judge in Smith's case granted a defense motion to quash the indictment against him, having been held in jail for nearly 8 outrageous years without even being convicted. It looked like Smith was finally going to have justice. So this is where it gets even worse. So they made it look like he was getting let out of jail. So the media stopped covering it. People believed that Smith was going to be a free man. So there was no more coverage, which there really was none of to begin with. So it left public view. They did not set him free. Smith was not a free man. So this is a letter that Sean King got. So he was tweeting about this, and with the belief that Smith had been set free. And Smith's family members had saw Sean King's tweet and were responding, he's not free. He's not free at all. So this is a letter to Sean King from Smith's family. Kevin is still incarcerated. He was released from New Orleans Parish Prison. However, the parole board is holding him until March 4th, 2022, without a trial, without having found him guilty. He had been in jail since February 2010. Kevin is currently being held at the River Correctional Facility. He still has not gone to trial. He still had not been found guilty, but he is still being held in jail. This time at a private prison, Riverdale Correctional Facility, managed by LaSalle Corrections, a family that has gotten filthy rich off of jailing more people per capita than any state in the country. So how is this possible? It appears that state officials claimed that Smith violated his parole by not properly changing his mailing address years ago, according to one of the former attorneys. And his family says that Smith will serve out his parole in the correctional facility until 2022, when, according to the court docket, his parole expires. In quotes, simply put, the district attorney was not able to convict him. Martin Regan, one of Smith's former attorneys, told him they dragged their feet, and when they got to the parole board, they brought people in who didn't know the case. The parole board accepted a testimony of unsworn witnesses who inaccurately presented the case. It was injustice. This man is now going on his 9th year in jail without ever having been convicted of a crime. It appears that his body is being housed and used for profit in jail and for some type of vendetta from local officials. He's in jail still, right now. This is the American incarceration system. This is happening to so many people. It just keeps cutting out, sorry. So, let's just look at the stats. How many people is this happening to in the United States? How much money is being spent on this? And what politicians are profiting from this? In the United States, 487,000 people are in jail on any given day awaiting trial. From PrisonPolicy.org, every year, 626,000 people walk out of prison gates, but 10.6 million times walk in each year. Jail churn is particularly high because most people in jails have not been convicted. Some have just been arrested and will make bail in the next few hours or days, but others are too poor to make bail and must remain behind bars until their trial, if their trial ever comes. Only a small number, 150,000 on any given day, have been convicted, generally serving misdemeanor sentences under a year. If you can look for it, I saw a piece on this actually by Oprah Winfrey. It was, I don't know if it was on 60 Minutes or 2020, but she takes you into the prisons and she talks to these inmates who have been in there for years awaiting trial. Many of them say they are not guilty, and just like this says, the majority of them are facing crimes that were not violent in nature at all. Pew reports, the U.S. incarcerates more people per capita than any other nation in the world. Approximately 1 in 100 adults, or more than 2.2 million people, are behind bars in the United States. In addition, another 4.6 million, or a total of 7 million people, live under some form of correctional supervision. The average cost of housing an inmate is approximately $20,000 to $30,000 per year and can go way higher. This price tag comes at the direct expense of public money that could be spent on public education, Medicare for all, public assistance, and it is one reason why so many states face fiscal crises today. To put this into perspective, the state of California spends 2.5 times more money housing and feeding its inmates than it does educating students. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? Releasing these inmates would save $20 billion annually, enough to employ 270,000 new police officers, 360,000 probation officers, or 327,000 teachers. How about teachers? How about more teachers so we can educate children? How about being able to pay for the heat in schools? How about those children that literally were sitting on the cement floor because they didn't have enough classrooms and they had their winter coats on because there wasn't heat in the building? How about all the teachers that have to pay for children's supplies? How about the teachers who pay for food for the children because these children are coming into school starving? They don't have enough money to have food at home. I don't know. But, oh no, let's continue to incarcerate people for selling marijuana when we're not giving anybody any other options because we're not, providing people with educations, or we're over-policing neighborhoods and just putting people in jail for shits and giggles. No, because it's for profit. Mass incarceration disproportionately impacts U.S. Racial minorities. Incarceration has had a devastating effect on blacks and Hispanics in the United States. African Americans are 6 times more likely to be incarcerated than a white person, and non-white Latinos are almost 3 times more likely to be incarcerated, according to Pew reports. Incarceration hits hardest at young black and Latino men without high school educations, and an astounding 11% of black men aged between 20 and 34 are behind bars. Mass incarceration is not a result of high crime rates. The U.S. has the highest incarceration rate in the world, not because it has higher crime rates, but because it imprisons more types of criminal offenders, including non-violent and drug offenders, and keeps them in prison longer. And it has far-reaching effects. It's a system. It's a system of oppression. It's a system of oppression. It's fascist. It's how they control people in this country. Employment population rates adjusted to include inmates suggest that only 26% of young black male dropouts were employed in 2008, while over 37% were in prison or in jail. Over half of the joblessness of young black and male dropouts is linked to incarceration. Incarceration also negatively impacts former prisoner abilities to earn a decent living. Several studies suggest that there are at least 6 million ex-prisoners living within society, and when they look for jobs, they are 50% less likely to be hired than job seekers without a criminal record. Former prisoners are paid less than those who have not been to prison. According to prisonpolicy.org, almost 500,000 people are locked up because of drug offenses. A lot of that being marijuana. Medical marijuana. Why do you think they don't, why don't they want to make marijuana legal? Number one, it heals people, and healthy people don't make money because pharmaceutical companies pay our politicians. Number two, because then what would they arrest people for? Oh, shit. Half of the population can't be arrested now because marijuana's legal. And those private prisons are paying politicians shit loads. Oh, this is it. Listen to this. Please listen to this. Drug arrests give residents of over-policed communities criminal records, which then reduce employment prospects and increase the likelihood of longer sentences for any future offenses. And I've seen this firsthand. I'm in Buffalo, New York, downtown Buffalo, New York, and there are police out there. They are doing those checks, police checks on the street, which I believe that's illegal. They're doing them like every 4 corners, police checks. They're arresting people. They're shooting unarmed people. They're patrolling the shit out of that neighborhood. They're arresting kids, children, teenagers for selling marijuana. Those kids are actually being put in jail with adults, and then they're suffering the rest of their lives. And what message does that send to the rest of the community? Well, why even try? Because they're going to put us in jail for staring at them anyways. I'm going to repeat that. Drug arrests give residents of over-policed communities criminal records, which then reduce employment prospects and increase the likelihood of longer sentences for future offenses. And that is systemic, that is oppression, that is a cycle. And that's how they keep people down. And this has to change. So, what politicians do we have to thank for being evil, maniacal humans who have sold their soul to the devil for power and money? Republican John Clubbersome, Republican Henry Cuellar, Republican John Carter, Republican Orrin Hatch, not my favorite person, who is in Utah, and I have a bone to pick with him about Bears Ears, and Republican Steve Fincher. Now listen to this. Listen to who got paid and what they did in response to getting the payoff, how it affected the policies, how it affected the people in the country. Marco Rubio of Florida takes the first spot of on the federal level with $26,000 plus in total receipts. Rubio was instrumental in steering the $110 million contract to GEO Group while serving as Speaker of the Florida House, and has received $40,000 from the GEO Group over his career. Well, thank you, Marco Rubio. How do you continue to be reelected? Is it because people don't know about this, or people are being brainwashed by propaganda that the country is full of bad hombres and drugs are the biggest problem in the country? Because I've heard it 1,000 times. On the state level, Governor Jerry Brown of California has by far been the biggest beneficiary of private prison money, with $160,000 in contributions, $160,000 plus in contributions over his career. And this is where that money goes into policy. Historically, Brown has received more than double the amount of the next highest state level recipient. Rounding out the top. Oh shoot, I don't have the stat on California. Shite. Hopefully it pops up. But anyways, also Vice President is one of the top. Our Vice President is one of the top.